This video will serve as my final thoughts on Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, as well as the spoiler cast of that game. So if you haven't played it and you're interested in it, come back to this video later after you've played it and experienced it for yourself. If you played the first Final Fantasy way back in 1987 on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it impacted you even remotely, just in the sense of how big an open world game was, and walking around and collecting items and taking on missions and getting into a pretty beefy story considering the time and the platform. Well, this game is going to do nothing but enhance that experience in your love for that game, because this game is directly related to the first Final Fantasy. Now, I will say that a lot of people gave Stranger of Paradise a really bad shake. Yes, graphically, it does oversaturate the HD, and at times it doesn't look as pretty as it should. And yes, the main character, Jack, is very one-noted early on in his blind obsession and hatred for chaos. So much so that you've seen these supercuts online of people just clipping together Jack saying chaos, chaos, chaos over and over and over again. That's been played to death. That all actually serves a purpose. And lest anybody think that Square Enix was not in just perfect thought and, harmony on like how to make a good game, right? Just how they knew to put this together to sell a story. This is just a testament to how brilliant their writing is and how much they have been absolutely nailing it lately, especially when you look at what they've done with Final Fantasy VII Remake, tying back into the original Final Fantasy VII experience. Here, too, the story goes. And I'm really, really happy to have played this game. I did buy the DLC, and I'm starting to chip through it. If there's any significant oh my god moments, I will definitely do a follow-on video, because I still can't put this game down even after beating the main story, which just tells you how amazing it is considering the litany of games that are available right now for us to play and experience. So with that, I'm going to get into the stuff that really, really moved me. So from a plot perspective, we're introduced to Jack. He is very one-noted. He meets up with some other friends, Ash and Jed. I say friend loosely. They all have amnesia. All they know is they want to kill chaos. That is really all they know. They're very one-dimensional characters, and they are given these black stones. Now, in the world of Final Fantasy, these stones or crystals, really more so when they illuminate, are typically tied to the elements. And you have the water crystal and the fire crystal. And if these crystals are in disarray or are used for nefarious means, typically the world is stumbled into some sort of ruin where, things don't go according to plan. So the fact that these guys have these black stones is very, very different than anything else. And while there is a prophecy that the Warriors of Light, these prophesized 4 heroes, will rise up and will, basically save the world from evil, gives way to think that, something's not quite right here. And I think it's very easy to glance over that point very early on in the game, especially when, you're jumping right into combat and you're just jumping into the really in-depth job system, and you're trying out all the different moves and abilities, and you're collecting treasure by the truckload, and you're playing some punishing combat at times. I think a lot of that can take a backstory, because the missions are very linear. You start off with a little bit of story exposition, you go to a strange new world, you fight your way through. Along the way, the level loops around itself numerous times by dropping ropes or ladders or opening doors, which allow you to traverse the world even faster the next time, assuming you die. You reach a final boss, there's a massive throwdown, and then rinse and repeat. And you will do this over and over and over again. That story structure never changes. Sometimes you'll have cutscenes in between, but most of the time it is very, very brief and to the point. Jack will meet the final boss of the area, be blinded by his rage to destroy this enemy known as Chaos, and anything that will get him closer to that goal is all he cares about. So I could totally understand where a lot of people saw that early on and go, oh, this is just one of these kind of silly games. But it actually makes a ton of sense. And as you play through the game, you come to find that Jack and his friends, and he does make other friends along the way, 4 more friends, not just not just Ash and Jed, but also meet Sophia and Neon. You come to find out that all of them seem to not really know what's going on. And it's slowly revealed that the idea behind them is that they're actually strangers, which are essentially aliens, for lack of a better word, from another world that are tasked to come to our world, the world of Cornelia that is taking place in the game. And they've done this numerous times. Many, many loops. They've been doing this for a very long time. And they are sent to destroy darkness. So it turns out that Cornelia is just basically a pawn in this giant scheme by this society known as Lufenia. And Lufenia is trying to perfect the idea of light and dark. And they found that, to make their society even better. So they're basically using this society as a bunch of pawns in order to help their society be more perfect. And what they do is they inject, darkness and despair into this world. They dispatch the strangers who come willingly, at least at first, to fight it, to see what happens when good versus evil clashes. And the goal here is to find that perfect balance and to prevent chaos. Now, chaos is when humanity itself basically accepts the darkness and they become evil themselves. And then chaos is the concept of this instability. And Lufenia is trying to prevent that from happening in their world by using Cornelia as a test bed. So when you play the game, you are in, obviously it's new to you. It's the first time you've ever played. But you are in, the nth number of loops in which this has happened, where Jack takes this black stone with him, which resets his memory. He's beamed down. He fights his way through, and rinse and repeat. Now, Jack has this uncontrollable anger, which is really harnessed in the ability for him to fight back against the forces of darkness much more effectively than anyone else. And that actually comes in handy quite a few times because he can absorb enemy attacks. He can, basically destroy everything when he just gets so enraged. And they use that. The Lufenians use that to their advantage. They give him this stone to wipe his memories so that he doesn't tamper with their experiments. But even though he comes back every time and he kind of understands what he did and somewhat shows remorse, he continues to go through the loop over and over and over again. And what happens is, over time, he realizes that this isn't really the right way to be. And more so, he falls in love with somebody. And he vows to keep her safe. So the loop right before the loop that you play, you find out that Jack actually set this elaborate plan to break the cycle once and for all on the following loop. The loop you play as the player the first time. So as you're playing through the game, you're learning about this world, but you don't know that Jack has already set things into motion to make sure that he can break the cycle. And that revelation is so amazing because you don't really know what's going on. And as you're playing through the game and collecting all these various pieces of lore and working your way through the story, you're finding bits and pieces. You, the player, are learning about this for the first time. But little do you know that everybody else is in on the secret but you. Where it's a very massive role reversal from going back to the way that the press kind of reviewed this game, saying how one-noted it is and how boring it is. That can't be farther from the truth. It's you, the player, who is not really an understanding of the world around them, not the other way around. And that was just a really, really cool twist. And that's what bummed me out so much so when I saw a lot of the reviews on this game, because I don't think the press really played through it entirely and understood the story. I think they saw it and go, oh, we get kind of the idea of it. But it's not till you understand that concept does the game really take a much deeper meaning. Ultimately, Jack, as a vessel of realizing there's only one way for the story to end, basically goes around and begins to single-handedly, and I say single-handedly, he does have friends, but at the end of the day, it's let's face it, it's Jack's show. He's the unstoppable force in this game. He basically takes all of those wild card chaos elements that exist in the world and defeats the guardians that were protecting those crystals. And in doing so, he basically single-handedly vanquishes all of the chaos in the world except for himself. So by doing this, he has essentially eliminated the problem that the Lillifenians want to experiment with. He is essentially beginning to absorb all of this, and he's tying it in with his feelings and his emotions, and that darkness versus his unstoppable rage ultimately begins to form chaos. The Lillifenians, realizing what's happening here, realizing that their agent Jack is now contaminated by the chaos that he sought to destroy and the chaos that they sought to kind of experiment with, send in their champion to defeat him. And now that Jack is so overwhelmed with rage, he can defeat this guy by himself. Lillifenians, realizing that Jack is now full of chaos, are nervous that if Jack were to ever return back to their planet or their universe, that he would basically destroy everything that they have worked so hard to manipulate and prevent. So they sever the link between our world and their own. So Jack is successful in destroying that link and saving the planet that he lives in. Unfortunately, his love dies. The woman he loved dies during all of this. Now he is essentially alone and arguably has nothing to live for except his desire to, in a way, kind of atone for what he had done. And he realizes at that moment that he and his friends are not the warriors of light, the mythical enemy or the mythical heroes that exist in the universe. He realizes that him and his friends have become pure evil. And now that they control the evil, Jack's single-handed goal is to take the mantle of chaos and await for true heroes to defeat him. And only then, when people of pure mind and spirit, the true warriors of light, only then when they rise up and defeat him, will the world truly be saved. So it's a tragic tale of a guy who really tried to do the right thing after many, many times of doing the wrong and manipulating this poor society and the darkness and the monsters that come through and harass these villagers and kill them. He does eventually come to terms with doing the right thing, but he does realize the only way for it to end is for him to become what he hated. And that is why Jack, whose last name is Garland and revealed at the end of the game, is in fact the same Garland that you play against in the original Final Fantasy. And he is the embodiment of chaos done before the heroes of light, or before the warriors of light ever become a thing in the original Final Fantasy 1. He has already gone through this challenge, absorbed all the darkness, sacrificed himself essentially, and he patiently waits for somebody stronger and pure of heart to defeat him, to once and for all settle the score and make the world a safe place to be. And if that isn't one of the coolest, most tragic stories in video gaming, I don't know what is. But it perfectly wraps up a lot of the nonsense that happened in the original Final Fantasy. It explains why there's a guy named Garland who is also chaos. It explains that, Jack was behind all of this. The friends that you met along the way, Ash, Jeb, Neon, and Sophia, each take the mantle as the four fiends. And there's a really cool scene at the end of the game where they're approaching Jack looking like they're these, very detailed, horrendous monsters. And then they kind of revert back into human form to speak with Jack. And you could see the beginning of kind of his dark army. And he vows that he is going to be the biggest terror he can be to force heroes to come forward to fight him. And he will patiently sit and await on the throne forever until somebody is strong enough to defeat him. And that was an amazing way to end the story and wrap in perfectly to the original Final Fantasy, which is available on the Pixel Remaster. And I'm going to be playing through it again now with a fresh understanding of what chaos is. I absolutely adored this game. It is easily one of the best games I have ever played in terms of story. Just blew me away. Really, really impacted me. And I love that they can find a masterful way to wrap the world in on itself. So good job, Square Enix. Love the product. Hope you guys found this video fun, interesting. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.